Hello.
Hi, gentlemen.
Hello. Hello, guys.
Welcome to another episode of Spine Crackers.
Yum.
We Spine Crackers. Yum. I am Matt.
I am Gabe, the baritone.
I am Paul, borderline baritone, but not quite there.
My singing voice is a tenor, so I'll go ahead and say that.
Is that true?
Yeah. I know I give such rich bass notes myself, but
We're basically a barbershop triplet.
well, I guess do we all sound the same audio wise? Is that a problem? Is that part of the problem?
You mean like quality? Because it's definitely not all the same. You sound better than us.
Well, yes, of course. I've gear, but do we all sort of like when I did a podcast with my brother, which it makes sense why that became confusing for a lot of people.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. But to be fair, I was the original. I'm the older brother, so all the mannerisms and stuff are mine.
Just straight bitten.
Yeah, just absolutely fucking taking a big old bite out of my fucking style.
Well, I remember, Gabe, when we were younger, when someone overheard us talking. I forget how this scenario actually happened, but I remember people saying that we had like very similar voices and they couldn't tell us apart at all.
Who was this person that was
I
chiming
don't
in on
know.
your conversation?
I do not remember. I don't know how this scenario happened. If we were like talking in another room and they were like listening in, I don't really understand, but it did happen.
Interesting.
So,
I think you're making that up.
That sounds like
made it up.
Paul, you can't. It's a malarkey-less world now, and you can't be bringing malarkey to the table this early.
That was fake news.
It was my birthday this week.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yesterday.
33. 33 years young.
Yeah.
Gabriel.
33.
I know. Speaking of
The
bit,
age of,
I was going to just bite your joke from our text chain, Matt, and sing the Taylor Swift song, but 33.
Yes. I don't know about me.
I don't know about me. I'm feeling 33. Have a hard time. No. Gotta go and poop and pee.
I like that it says, I don't know about me. I like that you're having that kind of crisis.
I don't know about you. The book this week is about Jews.
Dude. Okay. So the book that we're going to discuss is a short story collection called Soul of Wood by, this is my stab, Jakov Lind.
I'm pretty sure the J is a Y.
Like Yakov Smirnov?
Yeah.
Okay. Jakov Lind. Jakov Lind.
I could be wrong.
We'll go with that. That's the consensus. I didn't mean I know it's sort of a joke at this point. I didn't mean to choose another Nazi and World War II and Holocaust adjacent.
Yeah.
This is the hat trick for you. 3 in a row, right?
Fuck. I do have to fucking vary it up. I didn't intend.
There's some subconscious something or other going on.
Oh yeah.
You didn't even mean to do this one. You thought it was just a normal book without Nazis and Auschwitz, and then wrong.
That's all it is.
Fuck. Okay, I will pick something a little bit different next time around. But the reason I picked this was I should have guessed based on like the writer's nationality and the time period and whatever. But the reason I picked this collection was because Gabe and I actually read it way, way back when we were like 18 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Little babies.
And the only story I remembered was the, Journey into the Night or whatever. The was probably the shortest one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more, I was just trying to like roll back to something that I had read that I had basically forgotten for all intents and purposes, like, and see if it was as good as I remembered.
I was gonna ask, Matt, what were your memories of it, like in terms of just your impression, not so much that what did you remember about the stories, but like what do you remember about thinking about it when that time?
I remember, I mean, basically it was the story I just mentioned, the shortest one that stuck in my head and kept me remembering the entire collection itself, which is why I even chose it. Like, you know, not the sort of early, not the novella that like opens the collection, not really any of the stories after that either. Literally just the one shortest little story in the whole collection is what stuck with me the most and kept me thinking about it until now.
And you remember overall feeling positive about it though and enjoying it? Or it didn't even go that far?
Yeah, I remember feeling overall like it was cool. Like not a strong impression, but I was like, this was cool. I remember it being weird. And I was just curious where I would sit with it now.
Nice.
It wasn't like it wasn't like a 5-bagger classic in your head, like Gene Stafford's the Mountain Lion.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't an absolute knockout of the park, which is also partially why I wanted to reread it because it was even more mysterious to me what the fuck it was. Because I legitimately forgot the plot to like 90% of the stories that are in it.
I definitely felt like I was reading. I remembered some stuff like you, Matt, a couple of the stories from when I read this when we were younger, but I definitely felt like I was reading most of them for the first time because I like even reading them, I was like, it didn't really trigger like a memory, so I clearly didn't imprint him that deeply when I read it the first time.
Yeah, it wasn't like I was like having all of these rushes of realization as I was reading the whole book. Like, oh my god.
You didn't have that Link discovering a memory in Breath of the Wild.
No, that's what I wanted, and I didn't have it, except for the one that I already obviously remembered.
Yeah.
So,
so do you want to start? Do we want to talk about I guess start at the beginning, the actual titular novella, Soul of Wood.
Right.
Soul of Wood. Do we want to start there?
Yeah. You want me to give a preface?
Yeah. What's going on there?
All right. So the book's called Soul of Wood. Soul of Wood. It's the first one. It's basically a novella.
Like what, like 80 pages or something?
Yeah, something like that. A little over 80 pages. And it was my favorite of the things I read probably in the collection. I mean, it's very strange and it's going to not be easily synopsized, but basically this German, like, what would you call him? Housekeeper servant of sorts, Wolbrecht, is tasked with delivering the son of the Jewish family who had hired him to deliver their completely like paralyzed and borderline insensate weird son to safety because they couldn't do it and because they were interred in the camps.
And Wolbrecht himself is a war veteran from
from World War I.
World War I.
Yeah.
And he's got a peg leg, which I just wanted to say that.
He does. He's cool. He's got a peg leg. And basically, like, so he goes on this journey to bring this quadriplegic. To say quadriplegia for Anton Barth is the name of the kid is not quite accurate. He has some miraculous thing where he was born only a head with no body, and a body slowly grew out of the neck.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't it wasn't clear at first, right? Because he's talked about as being just a head for a few like 20 pages or so, and then that story comes out where he actually was. He's not just a paralyzed person in his head. He was born just a head.
No, his mother pushed out only the head of a baby, and it was alive, and then it grew a body like way after the fact, slowly.
Which evolutionarily, why not?
Yeah,
that could happen.
I mean, come on. If we were trying to like rewrite it, it would be not the worst way to go. But
Benjamin Butthead.
What?
Would you rather be old as shit coming out and then a baby? Sounds kind of better, right?
I would rather
Are you
see
asking me
that.
what I would rather if I would be Benjamin Button?
Yeah.
No.
Do you take that deal?
No, no way.
Why?
No way, Jose. No, I would totally do that. It'd be cool. Because I'd look like Brad Pitt as I got younger.
No. That's not you're fucking you.
Isn't part of the point of Benjamin Button that it doesn't really matter that like you wind up like helpless and invalid at both ends anyway?
Right. I mean, old age is called second infancy anyway.
Yeah.
But to be honest, Gabe, I didn't watch Benjamin Button or read it or know anything about it.
I think I might have watched it, probably not.
I honestly can't believe there was a movie at all.
The weirdest thing about that movie is that it's my younger sister's favorite movie, and I find it so weird.
That's such a weird favorite movie.
I know, it's so weird. Like, out of all the movies, that one?
It's so moving. He's old, and then he's a baby when he's old.
That's like, I feel like that's like asking someone like, what's your favorite movie? And they're like, The English Patient. Like, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's weirder than The English Patient because it's not even like it didn't even receive accolades as a film. It's just a fucking weird concept. Anyway, that's not what Anton Barth is doing. He was just ahead as a baby. And Wilbrecht needs to sort of just bring him to a safe haven.
To get him away from the Nazis.
Right, exactly. And he like kind of succeeds. This is where I have a tough time just not sort of going into like very particular details because like Wilbrecht basically like kind of fucks up, but like gets to the location, and then he just leaves Anton in this mountain cabin ostensibly to die because he doesn't really know what to do, and he just retreats back to the nearby village and kind of lives there and gets embroiled in you know, the Nazi party, but he gets considered insane and brought to an asylum and et cetera, et cetera. He helps a sort of Joseph Mengele type guy and whatever. And then as the war sort of winds down, all these characters that have accumulated that are all in some way affiliated with the Nazis and their crimes against humanity realizes that they all want to get a hold of this at this point sort of mythical Jew on the mountain who they all want to claim they hid and took care of so that they don't seem as monstrous as they are. And that's the comical conclusion of the story is they're all simultaneously trying to be the first to get to Anton, who they assume is dead, or at the very least he was immobile.
Yep.
But some sort of magical stuff happens to him on that mountain. Is that good?
Yeah. I think that's about the size of it. Should we sort of talk about this story kind of in isolation and then move into the other ones for a bit? Cool.
Yeah. Let's just go in sequence.
What were your initial takeaways, Matt? Initial impressions?
This entire collection felt a little bit like it went over my head. I'm gonna be honest. It felt like there were a lot of things that were some sort of parable or allegory, fucking, whatever, to an idea that Jakov had or wanted to express about like the larger darkness of humanity or something like that. Like all of these stories definitely feel like they are at least exploring like one basic concept, which is like the kind of like the other fucking Nazi literature, the Nazi literature in the Americas book I was choosing, like all of the manifestations of human evil, painted in like a very like dark comedy light.
Yeah. I think this first story, Soul of Wood, specifically, I felt like you said that there was a lot going on in terms of like, you know, religious allegory, this tadpole Jew on the mountain that that you know, and that all of these various characters want to sort of claim for themselves to show that they had saved you know, a Jewish person, and that would somehow like redeem them in for all the horrible things that they had done during the war.
Well, at the beginning, you know, it felt I thought I had picked up maybe the scent of like the meek shall inherit the earth, and like your poor and huddled masses, and that kind of sentiment of like, oh, because all of the people that were initially in like the first third were invalids or handicapped or sick, because you had like, you know, you had Wolbrecht who had one leg, Anton was immobile, and then I forget what his Wolbrecht's brother's name was, or brother-in-law rather, I suppose. Yeah. But he had epilepsy, and they were kind of like having a discussion as they were traveling of like sick people, you know, being the preferable people to run the world and to run society, because they just have this perspective, and that like your power in society should be exactly commensurate to how fucked up you are. Which is, they were, you know, essentially getting at the fact that Anton would probably be like the supreme leader of this hypothetical society because he straight up can't use any of his body or even like blink. And so I was trying to, what do you think about that? Because I was trying to figure out, like, I don't even know how seriously to take something like that.
Well, yeah, I had similar views. Like I felt like a lot of the connections, I could sense they were connections between characters to possibly some historical character type of person that I think went over my head. But I did get a little bit of that like Grimm's fairy tale parable vibe, especially from this story, where it was like structured in a way that was kind of they had some odd fantasy elements, but it was also very much critical of what happened in society at they're under, like, you know, Nazis and stuff. So
bet
it was it was an interesting mix, but I do feel like a lot of it did go over my head, and I found myself just kind of enjoying like the odd ride of it, but I don't really know what to make of most of it.
Yeah, and it's I think it's interesting because Lind's writing style, I would categorize as like pretty straightforward, pretty simple prose, but it does communicate these very sort of like, you get the sense that there's like a lot going on underneath. And I think that again, particularly in this first story, but I think you're right, Matt, to sort of hone in on this like sort of theme of physical deformity and kind of like, you know, the body and health and stuff like that. And I think that one way that kind of manifests, or one sort of thing that suggests to me, especially, and maybe we can come back to this when we look at some of the other stories, is that one of the themes that I saw throughout the whole collection, but again, especially in this first story, Soul of Wood, was this sort of theme of like, what of like survival, and like when survival is out, like when is survival worth it in a way, right? Sort of like what things are we willing to do to survive, and what do we gain from just that sort of bare survival? Because I think, you know, like Anton is literally just the figure of just bare life, right? Like,
yeah, right,
just literally the sort of operations of the human body going on with basically nothing else happening. And I think that sort of starting from that point, and the implicit question is like, is this a life worth living? Is it worth surviving this way? And that sort of starting point of that character, you sort of go work through the other characters and you see the things that they're willing to do just to survive. The implicit question being, is it worth it for the sort of life that these people have to live, which is often violent and terrible, and in a world that is like painted as very, very just shitty in basically every way.
But Anton also, in a rare, like, kind of maybe glimmer of positivity, takes his pleasures in weird ways because of how limited he is able to do anything whatsoever. So it's like you do get these like kind of nice moments strictly with him and no one else, basically, where he like enjoys being cold.
Right.
You know, like weird stuff. Like he's so excited to like see maybe a fox as he's being carted around in this like wagon. So, you know, the question of why even let this person survive is most attributable to him instinctively, and but he's maybe the one who takes the most joy out of, you know, his existence, I would
Yep.
argue.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, and I think that it makes it even more, you know, because everyone else has the use of their body, they can do sort of other things, you know, aside from Wolbrecht's peg leg and a few other, you know, but the question for those characters becomes like, what? It's less about your physical body and your ability to interact with the world, but your ability to live with the outcomes of the choices you're forced to make in certain contexts. And like, is it worth living with those choices to just be thrown back into a world where you're going to be forced to make them over and over again for like what gain ultimately, other than that bare survival?
Well, with Wolbrecht, you have like the other wrinkle to it, which is everyone's motivations for, you know, because it's a book about human evil post World War II. You're of course going to be getting the kind of grappling with the notion of people doing their job and serving functions and putting their heads down and trying to survive, like you're saying, while committing things that are like expand out into way worse atrocities. Um, and then you have something like Wolbrecht where he's just kind of got this stodgy sense of honor and his word. That's what kind of keeps him going for a while, and like lands him in an insane asylum eventually. Like his whole arc seems to be that a man's word is bond, essentially, and that seems to be the strongest rationale or like imprint on any of his behavior, and it slowly erodes away, and eventually he reneges on his like promise. So I think that's what you're watching with Wolbrecht, is like a guy who served in the war and is a decorated veteran, and has a sense of honor and pride in his service and this kind of thing. Very familiar stuff. Who wants to make good on a promise he made, and is being just completely like owned while he's trying to do it, and eventually he cracks.
Yeah, and I think, you know, yeah, exactly, and by the end, you know, even his all the sort of honor and stuff have gone out the window in the name of survival, and he even sort of views Anton as essentially his like his ticket out of post-war justice and retribution. Like, oh look, I saved one that I had
Right.
that I had stowed away, so I'm good. I'm good. I don't have to answer for helping the doctors administer, you know,
Air.
yeah, exactly.
But Jakov is like, you said his writing style is straightforward. But I was just like open randomly. He just has, and it is straightforward, but he just has like random funny stuff where he'll just do something like pipe down, screamed Wolbrecht. You know, just like really quick, like contradictory statements and stuff. I thought this one was pretty funny. This one felt a lot more like uh who was I thinking of? Who did Ferdy Dirk? and like
Gombrowicz.
God damn it. Is that how you say it?
I think so.
Witold Gombrowicz.
Yep.
Where
Gombrowicz.
the only way to cope with the enormity of the evil that just occurred, like in adjacent to all of these people's lives on in the European continent, is to go religious parable style and absurd, but like with absurdity and cynicism heavily layered onto it. Like nothing about this story is very silly in the darkest way possible. Like all these people are comically stupid and like out for themselves. And I mean, obviously once you get to the city segment, it's also about like the unthinking, dumb internal logic and the like useless struggles within it of like the fascist system, in particular the doctor and his struggle with what, like some sort of other military official
yeah,
meeting quotas for treatment, quote unquote, which is just a lethal injection.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it is.
Well,
go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, the writing style is definitely like straightforward, but it does have like that kind of quick-wittedness to it that I found darkly funny, satirical. He also doesn't really use any like she said this in quotations. It's just like it's all, you just have to really follow along pretty closely to see who is talking in any particular paragraph. So that's it's a little weird. But it was good. But it was good. I mean, I really enjoyed the writing style, and I was laughing a lot. More so at the other shorter stories, but this one had some great, just over the top, like Wilbrecht going insane, which was really funny. Just his behavior.
He's the main character, basically.
Yeah.
He has an arc.
Yep.
He is also, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that just sort of abruptly happens, and sometimes it feels natural, and sometimes it just feels weird. Like, I guess he goes nuts because he gets to the cabin finally, and it kind of sucked to do, and his brother-in-law was being a pain in the ass, and then his brother-in-law gets killed. And what is that? Why he just gives up and leaves Anton up there?
It's sort of a weird. I was trying to find the exact moment that happened, but because it's not exactly like the psychology of what happens in that moment is like pretty fuzzy. It feels like.
Yeah. Like he just kind of snaps, which I guess makes sense if he's gonna be certified insane later on in the story, because he goes into town afterwards and he's just like, what does he try and do? He tries to have sex with the whore, which that was funny.
That was funny.
It was funny.
But again, just like a minor, like maybe a paragraph's worth of a quote unquote episode where you just meet this woman randomly that he goes to fuck, who I guess he has seen before. And she's just like, look, man, I don't care if you're old and nasty and whatever, but you can't bring a bad vibe into my room. Like, like, just pay and like, just be chill and like, it'll be good. And then there's this whole weird episode where like Wilbrecht is obsessed with his appearance. And he just says, what does it say? There's a Looney Tunes segment where he bumped his head and he's got a lump on his head and he keeps using a butter knife to try and push it down into his head.
Oh yeah.
And it pops up in a different part of his head.
Yeah.
I was reading that. I was like, this is just something that like fucking Elmer Fudd would do.
Yeah.
I think you're right that there's a lot of those like just classically comic moments. Like, I mean, the whole sort of like climax of the book is basically this like, it's like something out of like The Amazing Race or something, where all these people like are like racing to the cabin to try to get Anton, and they all kind of like get there at the same time, and it's very comic.
and they're all tripping over stuff. It's like, yeah, it's a mad world or whatever.
Yeah.
Because and there's just like stuff like this that like this kind of thing keeps cropping up where it says this was like after he tries to like squish the bump down on his face a bunch.
Do you have the page number?
41. He says he was in a bad mood. He hated little blemishes, bumps, pimples, scratches, scabs upset him. He had no patience with them. It wasn't vanity. No, I'm not vain, he said to himself, but he just couldn't stand such things. A wooden leg is still a leg, but a face with blemishes isn't a face. And it's like that kind of thing makes me laugh, but it also like these things happen all over the book, like the collections, and like they just kind of throw me. And maybe that's the intention, but I'm just like, what does this do? Like, it's a new like pixel to the overall like definitional render of Wolbrecht as a character, but it's so oblique to anything else that's happened before that it just like, it doesn't serve it. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of, you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think, and I think this hits on sort of something that you were saying earlier, is that like, or it's related to it, that, you know, a lot of this sort of post World War II European literature that was reckoning with the Holocaust and what had just happened. And Lind was directly affected by the Holocaust. He had to like go into hiding and flee various times with his family, with his parents. But you know, it's tonally all over the place. Like it goes from comedy to like deep sort of like dark depressing stuff to like religious allegory and back again, all in the space of a couple sentences.
Yeah,
that's a sort of a hallmark of like this sort of, like you said, this sort of post Holocaust, you know, sort of pseudo surrealist like fantasy stuff. And it is jarring, and I think that's partly intentional and partly just because that was the vibe of that time and place in history.
I guess.
Yeah, I kind of see it as like the writing and the offhanded sentences that, or paragraphs that don't seem to make any logical sense. It kind of relates to the theme of meaninglessness and what it really means to even be alive for these characters, and like what's the point of it.
Yep.
So
Right.
I think in that way it was effective.
I mean, that's I don't know enough to go into a full kind of like whatever fucking like theoretical notion about art at the time, but I do know that when a lot of people talk about their favorite time period for art, it's like World War II to like the decades after, or World War I to like the decades after World War II. Like basically the response in the like mid 20th century of like the first great wars, and that creating like, yeah, this sense of like the precarity of any sort of order, and that leading in and creating all of these weird movements in like every medium that were reckoning with, you know, I guess like, I don't know. Gabe, do you know anything? Do you have a more intelligent thing to say about this? Like the art world and stuff too, right? Like, is that like, when was Dadaism and that kind of thing? Like these responses to like, please, we're going to challenge anybody to make heads or tails of what we're doing or the world, partially out of what feels like this kind of tragic desire for someone to actually genuinely tell them what to do next.
Yeah. I mean, well, Dada was earlier. Dada was in the 20s, was when it was sort of in its heyday. But I think, you know, I mean, I think with the post World War II stuff, I mean, I think like it's hard to, it just you run into this problem where you just start sounding like you're saying obvious things, like people were trying to reckon with evil and
Sure.
like, but that's what was happening. Like,
Yeah,
you know, it was sort of obviously something that people had never seen on that scale, and sort of attempting to, you know, make heads or tails of it, let alone heads or tails of, you know, for someone like Lind and you know, millions of others, their actual experiences of being in it. It was sort of like a mass a mass kind of like psychologist visit where everyone was sort of experimenting with ways of coping with their own trauma, and we just got a bunch of novels and shit out of it.
Because Lind himself, sorry, go for it, Paul.
I was going to say, Matt, if you have the best Jordan Peterson voice, you could just talk about order and chaos right now.
Well, man, if you think it's bad now, I got a little bit of news for you, buddy. I got a guy named Adolf Hitler. There's a guy whose room was clean. What am I talking about? Am I the bad guy? Oh no. That's my version of I'm gonna take benzos until I'm in a coma. That's my version of Jordan Peterson.
If you thought Hitler was bad, I'll tell you, the real fascists are the people who are trying to turn penises into vaginas. Now that's chaos.
That's chaos, because I don't know. They're called traps, and I don't know what to make. I can't make heads or tails of it.
People need to find meaning.
Where was I? Maps of meaning. Where was I?
Get that coffee.
No. I hate these people orbiting around us. Wait, so yes, what were we talking about? Like, yeah,
sort of the general historical milieu of when this, was
the
written.
cliche of this, where there's like this rupture of any sense, and that's bleeding through. But I mean, there's still something, like we were saying, like a through line in these things, which is definitely like an all-pervading sense that everyone's a fucking evil asshole, and that it's tragic.
The world is very bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the best you're gonna get is the character of maybe like Anton Barth. No one even comes close to his vibe in the whole rest of the book.
No. I think that it makes sense that Anton is the sort of only character that is able to experience this sort of like direct pleasure and stuff, because he's sort of in this like bubble, like mind prison that can't sort of be infiltrated or can't interact in meaningful ways with how shitty the world is. He can sort of be like, yeah, I like being cold, or that feels good, or oh, like, yeah, Fox, awesome.
Do you think though, like, is he supposed to kind of be a little bit like just maybe some sort of like reverse genesis of the human being, where because he's all intellect and concept and brain to start, he is in a way experiencing the world in reverse, to bring it back to the Benjamin Button.
I was just going to say, I was going to say
right now. Whereas everyone else is kind of like a sort of, injured and just wearing the, the marks and scars of life on them that we encounter, at least immediately. And then
I think that could be something that sounds like it could possibly be a good theory to me. I don't know. And some of the other short stories, Lind is kind of focused on Adam and Eve, and most notably Adam. And I kind of see Anton as some sort of like new prodigal Adam that's like even more less than Adam was just like a naked guy. Like he's just a head now, and it's like it's almost like God wanted to have this human experience the world in a even more pure, simple way.
Yeah,
possibly.
I think you're right, Paul. And I think when we come back to this, this theme will come up in some of the other stories, but there is a running kind of question of like, is the world worth engaging with? Should we like just pull away and kind of live alone, and kind of just do, whether that's in Anton's kind of like internal, like mental way, that was obviously forced on him, not done by choice, or the way that other people in some of the other stories choose to do that. I think, again, it goes back to this question of like, is the world worth living in as it is, or should we like try to just either get away from it or somehow like start again?
Well, right. I mean, maybe we should transition into the next story then. Do you think we should do that? Because that's like a perfect segue into that story.
Well, do you mind if I just say a couple more things? This is like the longest thing in
Yeah.
here. And like I said, I think it's got the most meat on its bones. But just a couple things about the characters. Wolbrecht, right? Nice, man. Thanks a lot. Really undermining my point.
No,
No.
I'm listening full-heartedly. I just came out.
You're just being a
Leave it in.
body. You're just being in the present.
I'm just being a head.
No, that was a gut to a head.
The burps come out of the mouth, which is on the head, though.
Inarguable.
Paul just farts out of his ears.
And it's just green steam coming out.
Nickelodeon fart.
I'm sorry. That got me. I'm sorry.
I can tell.
I'm trying to talk about Nazism.
Yeah.
Well, Wolbrecht goes to an insane asylum, and like, we don't have to like go into depth about this, but like, he basically becomes the middleman between two different types of Nazi guys that are like, one's a doctor who's just like, it's better pay than being a country doctor, which he was before, and he just has to meet the quota of like injecting poison into Jewish inmates the whole time. And then there's like some military guy who I don't even know what the fuck he wants. He just wants to make sure that they're all dead, and keeps upping the quota.
Mm-hmm.
And like Wolbrecht is between them, and I mean that's just sort of accentuates this notion of, like you were saying, Gabe, like what does it mean to survive, and like is it worth it?
Well, and I think in that example, or that section of the story, you know, it sort of focuses on another theme that was sort of really popular with, or really common. Popular is a weird term to use, but very common in this, you know, literature about the Holocaust, which is the sort of like, and this is this is sort of what Arendt kind of formalized in her book on Eichmann, The Banality of Evil, where people, but it was something that had been explored in a lot of literature and stuff about the Holocaust, which is the sort of like just bland, absurd bureaucracy of the way that the Nazi sort of party functioned, and like these hideous things, like some of the stuff that Wolbrecht is witness to in the insane asylum, were just sort of like, you know, the equivalent of like boxes to be checked in an Excel spreadsheet. And that was really the sort of the first time in modern history that sort of mass death and pain was like formalized in such an absurd bureaucratic way. Of course, that's something that's very common today, but it was something that people were reckoning with for the first time post World War II. Yeah,
you got the Mengele guy who's basically like checking off corpses as though he were like itemizing a stock room at an Apple store or something, and then the other guy, and then they all eventually end up wanting Wolbrecht's help in divulging the location of Anton. And Anton, in the meantime, because he got headbutted by a magical deer or something, he turns into basically like an otherkin, like deer boy who thinks he's a deer in the woods, and he's like running around.
Yeah, that was the best part. I love that part.
Right, so he basically becomes an animal, which, I mean, again, I don't know if this is some sort of like
return to Monk.
If he's being Monk, and that's the best way to be, or what?
Well, but I do think it's pretty in line with some of the stuff we've been saying, which is that this return to, should we take that route, right? Like there's a lot of alternative routes that are presented to sort of like as ways out of, or to sort of start over humanity and or the world throughout these stories. And I think that's the return to Monka is just one of them there.
But the complicating factor is that it is still played as silly. Mm-hmm. Essentially everyone by the end of this story just looks bad, looks like a fool. Even Anton, he's being weird. He's like eating grass and thinking he's a deer. and he's not. And
You can't
Yeah.
sing that to him.
Oh no, that's true.
Other can are valid on this podcast.
Ooh. Yeah, that's fine. If you think you're a telekinetic fox, I definitely agree that.
Yeah, I
That's...
mean, if he was alive right now and he was a head and grew a body and wanted to be a deer, he'd be a furry.
What? Well, see, that's okay. Now I don't want to open a can here,
Ooh.
but I don't know the difference between furries and other kin.
I don't either. I don't.
I feel like just one. Nah, I don't even want it. Yeah. Venture takes it more seriously as an identity than the other.
Ooh, okay. I don't know about that.
I know that's spicy. I don't want to. Let's get out of here. Let's bail.
Yeah, let's get it. Well,
Podcast over. This is actually going to be the last episode, everybody.
Thank you so much.
We are canceling ourselves right now. Goodbye.
Literally, this podcast is over, off the air.
One thing I wanted to talk about with Anton Barth was I really liked the dichotomy between like the overt racism inflicted on his character. Like, this is a Jew, he's a tadpole boy, he's only a head, he's an invalid, like borderline nothing human, but he also has like the most pure soul, pure experience, like best experience. And I almost think that Lind, as you were saying, Matt, like possibly is saying that this is the way humans should live, and I just kind of, or could live. But I like that. I like that the difference in nature of the character could be like looked at as being horribly racist, which it is, but also at the same time saying that this is like possibly the most pure soul in this story. And I thought that was interesting and good.
Yeah, like I guess I was just getting at my point that I was getting at was maybe. I think
Well, yeah, maybe
this is the closest you get to like a character who is kind of could be described that way, and it's still ludicrous and
it's still unclear.
Yeah, like layered with like a lot of cynicism. Basically, he's hunted like an animal,
right?
And that's kind of just sort of like maybe what it's about. But yeah.
I think, yeah, by the end, you're like you said, Matt, by the end, everyone just kind of has egg on their face and looks really bad. And
right.
And it just gets more and more absurd. Like by the end, like I literally, that whole scene, that final scene on the mountaintop where ultimately Wolbrecht is shot and killed. Spoilers.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
But I think by now everyone should just know that every episode is full spoilers for everything that happens in every book.
Yeah, 100%, as much as we can give.
Yeah, we want to give you the most spoilers.
Yeah.
But I was just picturing, I was just in my head when I was listening to it, and in some ways in some of the psych hospital scenes, I just had the circus music playing in the back of my head, just like because it was just bumbling weirdos running around being weird, and it was very sad. And I mean, it's funny because I was just rereading it, and because I was having that music in my head, and of course the circus is referenced like in that pretty much the last paragraph where Wolbrecht is shot, and so it says Muckel aimed the pistol with trembling hands, but he couldn't do anything without a preamble. Wolbrecht, you're a bad sword, or I couldn't do this. You're still an interesting case, so it's really too bad. And now, my good friend, grit your teeth. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt bad. He fired until Wolbrecht didn't stir. Whimper looked to see that he was really dead, opening one eye with practiced fingers. Too bad, he said. He probably would have made a good circus impresario in time. Wasn't he wild about midgets? It was almost pathological. Well, let's not speak ill of the dead.
Right. And Wolbrecht loved midgets because they were still visually interesting while being incredibly cost effective because they didn't eat as much or need as much clothing material.
Right.
Just there's no relenting. Yeah, I guess on like how ludicrous and kind of dark everything is.
And that
Well, yeah, I just
there is of course another song which is that maybe that's what was playing in the psych ward.
I think both songs can be used.
What were you gonna say?
I just love the idea. I just love the idea of someone murdering someone and then 2 seconds later saying we shouldn't speak ill of the dead. I really love that.
What's that other song? Is that Flight of the Bumblebee? What is that?
I don't think so. Is it?
Fuck. I don't know, man.
Classical music is not our forte.
Listen.
Flight of the Bumblebee is by Mozart. So I don't think Mozart wrote that.
Is that true?
Is that true? And
sure.
is also true that
trolling?
Yeah, are you trolling us?
Yeah, it's by Bach.
Flight of the Bumblebee is
No, shut up, dude.
Flight of the Bumblebee is by Dua Lipa.
Just because she's the it person at the moment.
No, 100 gex.
Oh no, it's by Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. I was way off.
Samsonite. I was way
off. 100 gex should just be Gek the Gecko. Samsonite. Swanson, Samsonite.
Samsonite.
So what do you guys make of the title of this story? Soul of Wood. What's the vibe? What's that all about?
I can't tell if it's meant to be like something easily manipulable as a material or something meant to be through that metaphor considered like implacable and like not. I don't know which one, because I thought of I didn't read it, but that I want to that The Crooked Timber of Humanity, which is like an Isaiah Berlin book.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go further than that, but I just immediately thought of that, which just seems like a metaphor that's maybe been floating around and used a lot to describe human beings.
Well, that's a Kant quote. That Berlin is riffing on, and I think the full quote is something like, "Out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made."
Yeah, I've heard of that actually.
Implying, that sort of like both that humanity is sort of pliable in the way that you were suggesting, but also that that like humanity is not easily sort of amenable to hard and fast rules and sort of we're not automata essentially.
What was it? No things could ever be made straight.
Out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made.
I think something like that. I can look up the actual.
That should be the slogan for the LGBT community.
You really trying to get it canceled now?
I saw that one coming from a mile away in your little glimmer of eye.
I'm sorry.
But the Soul of Wood, it's like, so I was just wondering if that was like just an even less direct way of just kind of alluding to the same quote or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think a better title would have been Leg of Wood.
Yeah, we had this is everyone's favorite segment, retitling and rewriting.
I think it would have been cool. Yeah, this story was cool, but I think it should have been called Leg of Wood, and it should have taken place in the Caribbean during pirates times.
Oh my god, and been called Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and I think the guy instead of Wolbrecht, his name should have been Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh my god, dude, yes.
And I think he should have been played by Johnny Depp.
I think Anton should have been Keira Knightley and whoever the fuck what her character is. And then the Whimper could be
Orlando Bloom.
We did it.
Nice.
More fun, more family friendly.
Story.
Next story.
Done.
Solved. This is the one that I remembered called Journey Through the Night. And this is the one that for whatever reason, stuck with me,
Mhm.
and I retained.
Well, I think it's really evocative. I mean, basically, it's about a guy. It's about a guy who's on an overnight train ride, and his cabin partner turns out to be a cannibal who may or may not have drugged him, and is sort of just slowly waiting for him to fall asleep to eat him.
Right.
And they're just sort of going back and forth. Him trying to stay awake, the cannibal being like, "Come on, what's just." Showing him his tools and explaining how he cuts up bodies and all that.
Yeah, he's like, you might come on. You're gonna fall. You might come on. Well, my first this is what the thing that I'd thought about way before, because I always remember the cannibal character as being described as looking like a seal. And I told Paul this theory earlier a couple days ago, but like
Totally forgot.
the description of him as this like pale guy with like a clean shaven face and slicked back hair who's a cannibal. I was like, did the writer of Silence of the Lambs
Oh yeah.
do you think he read this story at any point in his life and copped to it? Because that's what Hannibal Lecter is described as looking like, essentially.
That's
And
interesting.
Well, that's funny because I remember you. Now that you say that, I remember you saying that 2 days ago to me.
Oh, good.
And the funny thing is, I had that thought, and I thought it was my original thought when I read this.
This is how theft happens.
I think this Inception.
Yeah. I actually incepted you. And I Elliot Paged your brain.
But I actually think that this story, I mean, I think it stuck with you for a good reason, Matt. I think it's really evocative. It's very kind of very eerie, very sort of the back and forth between them I found to be very, very disturbing. And I think this story for me really was in another place where I felt sort of hammered home this question of like survival, like why live, why survive, what's the point? Because at one point the cannibal sort of is directly asking the other guy. He doesn't have a name, I don't think, does he?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. So he says, and Paul, this is on 86 to 87. I think we have the same page numbers, right?
I think
Actually,
so.
mine are way
we all
different.
have different versions. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. So he says, a voice spoke very softly. It sounded almost affectionate. There, you see, you're getting sleepy. That comes from thinking. What have you got to look forward to in Paris? Paris is only a city. Whom do you need anyway, and who needs you? You're going to Paris. Well, what of it? Sex and drinking won't make you any happier, and certainly working won't. Money won't do you a particle of good. What are you getting out of life? Just go to sleep. You won't wake up, I can promise you. But I don't want to die, I whispered. Not yet. I want to go for a walk in Paris. Go for a walk in Paris. Big deal. It'll only make you tired. There are enough people taking walks and looking at the shop windows. The restaurants are overcrowded, so are the whorehouses. Nobody needs you in Paris. Just do me a favor and go to sleep. The night won't go on forever. I'll have to gobble everything down so fast you'll give me a bellyache.
You know what I was thinking?
thought that was a really sort of direct statement of, in some ways, the central question of this collection for me, which is why bother? Like, why go to Paris? Why go for a walk? Everything sucks. Everybody sucks. Just go to sleep and get eaten by a cannibal. It all comes out the same, basically.
Yeah,
he's like, at least I'm interesting. Out of the two of us, I'm interesting. I eat people. So like, just be a part of my story. Because your story sucks.
Right. That he felt like I don't know. You're right. There is a reason I like this. It's because it's the shortest one and it packs what feels like essentially the most naked version of the central question. One of the central questions Lind is kind of grappling with, which is like, here is this person, this crazy person, and you're just on this, sort of whatever metaphorical train ride in the middle of the void, and they are making a compelling case for just a kind of like nihilistic, like they're trying to seduce you with the idea that you should no longer exist, that he's very silly.
He's trying to blackpill him.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I literally wrote, but the question still remains to me, and this is like, who's the? I mean, the guy. He's the guy. Maybe he's kind of like the judge in Blood Meridian or something, sort of this like manifestation of quiet violence that is constantly justifying its existence as like the end all be all. But it's like, if this is just also a guy, he's the one benefiting still. He gets to have a meal and do what he wanted to do and exist. And like I wrote I was very sleepy. I just wrote neoliberal austerity under the line, I've got to eat you. In the first place, I'm hungry, and in the second place, I like you. And I feel like that's such a beautiful rendition of like a very evil idea that keeps getting pitched in various guises to people in general. It's like, no, you should die and suffer, or whatever. You won't suffer much, and like I'm hungry, and it's because I like you a lot.
And
I think you're actually
in
pretty
that
cool.
case, it's just capitalism that's hungry and says it likes us.
Exactly. Yeah, I knew I wrote it down. I knew I wrote that down for a reason.
I got you. I'm there with it.
Good sleepy thought, Matt.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, great little story, I thought.
7 pages.
Yep.
But I thought that it was like the most clear and concise display of Lind's thought process and what he was feeling in this whole collection too. But it's my second favorite out of the whole collection.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. Oh yeah, we should rank them all at the end.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
But the question is like, again, do you feel like he kind of Lind still is essentially holding out on a definitive answer to any of this stuff? Like, is the guy's escape any kind of indication that Lind still believes? Or is it yet another instinctive act of survival in the face of questions that people aren't capable of answering definitively in any way?
I think I would opt for the latter. So the guy ultimately does escape, but I think it's more this sort of just like survival. The survival instinct is so hard to override. And it's just this sort of, it's not really a commentary on the cannibals' actual questions. Like, we don't, at the end of it, we don't get an answer as to what the guy's getting out of life or what's in Paris for him or why he should go on living. He just decides to.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to read, it's like the third to last paragraph where the main guy pulls the thing on the train and stops it and everyone's pissed off. And Polton stowed the mallet quickly in his suitcase and took his coat. He was at the door in a flash. He opened the door and looked around. I pity you, he said. This bit of foolishness is going to cost you 10,000 franc fine. you nitwit. Now you'll have to take your walk in Paris. I just love how he's like, well, now you didn't die. It would have been easy to die. Now you have to deal with this fine.
Well, I think the really interesting part about that is the last line. Now you'll have to take your walk in Paris.
Yeah,
It's pitched as a sort of sentence. Now you have to go on living. You had your chance to get out, and now you're stuck.
One final thing that I highlighted was, is it more natural to eat pigs or calves? Does it hurt more when you can say it hurts? Animals don't cry. Human beings cry when relatives die. But how can anybody cry over his own death? Am I so fond of myself? So it must be vanity. Nobody's heart breaks over his own death. And that's the way it is.
Hashtag go vegan.
Yeah. Really fucked up. Just a guy. He's just trying to get somebody into animal rights.
Mm-hmm.
That's that story.
Next story.
Next.
The Pious Brother.
I thought this was a weird one.
I don't remember this one.
This one seemed to me to be more about like people being hypocritical in like. This one seemed like a classic reality TV. I hate fake people kind of tale.
So we have Pauly D and Snooki sitting around a table.
Mm-hmm.
after a party, basically. So it is sort of like a reality TV moment. No, obviously, Pauly D and Snooki are not even relevant reality TV references anymore, probably.
Yeah, you really are. Yeah, you're 33 years on this planet.
I don't know about me.
But I am 33.
But so it's the bulk of the story takes place sort of in a kitchen after a large party at a wealthy princess's palace, celebrating the Russian retreat from we don't know exactly where. And it's a discussion between Franz, who's a priest, avowed Nazi, and Yvonne, who's a artist, I think a singer from London.
Yeah.
And it's sort of this we see this sort of back and forth of their dialogue, but also the internal sort of machinations of what they're thinking. And basically it's this sort of dance back and forth between them where Yvonne has always had this like fetish for seducing like religious people, specifically priests. And Franz has a fetish for trying to sort of like get women off with his huge mind alone, basically.
Yeah.
He's pretty cringe, honestly.
You know, he's like fill me up, but with your brain or my brain.
Yes.
Give me brain. There's a joke somewhere around there.
And then the princess comes in and cockblocks both of them, essentially, and then Franz sort of offends her by implying that one of her dead sons who died in the war was Jewish, secretly Jewish, and then him and Yvonne leave, and they go back to his apartment, and he kills himself.
So that's fun, right? I mean, that's in line with what we've been talking about so far.
Yeah.
Oh, was Yvonne the one that was like she was attracted to religious people, but also like people that just spoke different languages?
Like, part of it is that. Well, yeah.
Like and it reminded me of I just watched A Fish Called Wanda, and Jamie Lee Curtis's character in that movie. Like she just loves hearing, like she's just like, oh, speak any French words to me, and she like rolls around the floor in lust. And I was thinking of that.
Better name for this story: A Fish Called Yvonne.
All right, so we got two better names.
Nice.
Leg of Wood, A Fish Called Yvonne.
Right. The other story should have just been called friggin' Cannibal on a Train.
Cannibal on a Train, yes.
Something. Let's not like sell a false bill of goods here.
Yeah, I would totally watch that movie, Cannibal Train.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's Cannibal Holocaust is very close to something that is applicable to this book, but whatever.
True.
Well, okay, to plunge a little deeper, I would say like
I wasn't trying to dismiss or rush through. I just wanted to get the plot.
No, I know. I just like I think Yvonne as somebody who is just sort of in love with she's just a superficial person. She likes the what? She just likes the forbidden nature. She wants to have sex with the Pope. That's like her like ideal get.
Yes.
And you know, it tracks with her character that she would also just love the sound of a language regardless of what's being said, because I think like she's just being horny for words, because I think that's basically what I already forgot his name.
Franz
is like essentially offering as like a hypocrite who himself converted only after, you know, committing horrible war atrocities and sins, and who now converted but found himself enjoying his conversion only because he could kind of drive women like this into a frenzy by being a kind of fake version of what he is in reality or whatever. Like he's just being a hypocrite. He loves the like forbidden tension and just like edging this person by never touching her.
I think, and there's Franz is one of the most reprehensible characters in the whole book. I think he's super.
He's awful.
Awful person. He like keeps fantasizing. He fantasizes about this woman, this Jewish woman who he induced to slap him and then had killed because she was Jewish.
Oh my God.
It was this woman he was doing this sort of same like sexual game with, and then took it a step too far. I forget exactly what happened. And she slaps him, and he just remembers that slap so almost in a sexual way. And then of course he turns her in and has her killed.
But I mean, I think it's intentional that there's like this now conflation between him being an SS officer with that capability and now being a priest, and just smashing those two things really unsubtly together, and just being like the same shit. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, because and then for Yvonne, sorry, Paul, just there, just a little thing of just except for the ascetic shape of Franz, which affected Yvonne as an aphrodisiac, the topic itself left her absolutely cold. And that's kind of like her whole thing. She's not evil or anyway. Like, yeah, Franz is like the monster that is basically like exerting his influence on everybody else in the room.
Right.
She's just kind of like the dumb person who doesn't see the evil because she doesn't pay attention to the substance of people and what they're saying and any sort of subtext, basically.
Yeah. Well, this story did have this long section where Franz talks about Adam and Eve and Adam and the rib and the incestuous relationship. And when I first read it, I thought it was Lind's kind of maybe like a strange take on his own philosophical intentions or something. But when I reread it, I was like, I think this is just Franz who's being like an SS hipster, just like talking out of his ass.
Get the coffee.
Just like trying to like sound super heavy and smart to appeal to Yvonne, so he seems cool in this establishment.
If you go with a former SS officer and they don't have books, don't fuck them.
Love a man in uniform. Yeah, I mean, is this just kind of a somewhat clear line being drawn between just false authorities of various kinds?
I think there's that aspect of it. I think like you said, the priest and the SS officer being literally one and the same.
Right. Yeah.
And sort of, it's the way in which that they both served sort of Nazi ideology, were being two sides of the same coin. I think that's definitely a big part of what's going on. And then just the sort of general like questions about hypocrisy and internal conflict. Because I by the end I was completely puzzled as to why he killed himself. Because he seemed completely fine with all of his hideous deeds and hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's like not that he was redeemed, but is that the most redemptive thing he could do? Yeah, and he's dressed as the Jewish guy he remembers killing. Also,
right.
Yeah, which is even grosser. Like he's like,
it's absolutely terrible.
He like cosplays.
Yeah, it's like the one. His final act is to just try to kill. It's like the worst version of like kill the god in your head or kill the cop in your head. It's like it's the SS version of that, which is just kill the Jew inside your head, which is yourself.
Oh my God, that's bleak, dude.
God.
I kind of think that's what was going on, though.
The one thing I had underlined was any pagan, any Buddhist is 1,000 times superior to us. The Jews at least rescued human responsibility, and the Buddhists saved God's omnipresence. All that was left to us Christians was the mystery of the Trinity, and if you take that away, we are finished. And I think that's I do like that sentiment of like sort of occulted or mystified void, or just like or mystifying evil, which I think is more akin to what Arendt is suggested, which is that it's like it's pretty banal and oftentimes procedural and directly applicable or like attributable to like usually people or organizations with names and fucking addresses and stuff. And it's like, you know, but if you can mystify it in a concept like, you know, the Trinity or something,
Yes.
it can seem like so much more, and you can get away with so much if you're capable of pulling that kind of trick over people.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled
Was
being Kaiser Soze.
yeah, dude. Panicking and creating a narrative based on stuff he saw on the wall.
Next story.
The Judgment.
The Judgment.
The Judgment.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite one.
Well then, what's it about? Take it away.
And explain why.
This is about a mass murderer who is in prison for killing 12 women on the first of every month for a whole year, and he strangles them to death, and he's a complete psychopath. What was his name again? Was it Franz? There's so many Franzes. I don't remember his name.
Pretty sure it's Carl.
Carl, not Franz at all. But yeah, it's him kind of fuming in prison, and he has like just I think at the beginning it's like a couple days until he's being executed, and he gets this idea in his head that he wants to kill one more person, and he gets the idea that he wants to kill his father. So he writes this hilarious letter to the warden, and at the end of it he signs it respectively Carl, comma, mass murderer, which made me laugh so. But you know, he's like, it's like a big case or whatever. You know, he's obviously this famous killer, and he gets his way, and his dad comes to his cell, and they're alone, and they kind of stare at each other for 2 minutes, and they both strangle each other. And the father ends up, you know, he's like bigger, stronger, and kills his son, and his eyes pop out. And and then the father goes into like an insane asylum, but they kind of just let him out after a little while, because they're like, your son sucked. But there's, you know, it's interesting because there's flashbacks to when Carl was younger, and just like basically being beat up by his dad, but he's also just like a complete total psychopath. And like when he was like a young kid, he cut his finger off on a dare, and then like kept the finger.
Yeah.
he's like sitting at the dinner table with his parents, and like takes out the finger and starts like itching himself and like picking his nose with it.
That's what I would do.
And his dad's like, give me the finger. He's like, no, this is my finger. What
it's
do you mean?
mine, dude.
It's totally fucking horribly bleak and unsettling, and it just makes I want like every single person that ever has a son to read this, just to be like, this could be your child someday.
Whoa.
Think about that.
Whoa.
Paul's parenting classes would be really weird.
Yeah.
Look out, Dr. Spock.
I thought one of the things that I really liked about this story is that the dad specifically, he's like, you know, part of his rationale for wanting to kill his son is that it's this sort of like almost like pseudo libertarian rationale where he's like, well, I'm allowed to do it, but the state shouldn't do it. I should do it.
Right.
I'm not gonna let the state kill my son. I'm gonna kill him my damn self.
Like the dad's just like by degree a less psychopathic guy. And I think you're supposed to recognize that. Like he still wants to kill his son because it's like, I brought him into this world. I'm gonna take him out. You know?
Well, yeah, once again, this is a story, like it's filled with characters that are just not great. None of these are redeemable characters at all.
Meanwhile, you know, the murderer, the son, is like, he's just kind of like incel style. Like he's just like, he's trying to get the headlines. He's trying to get, you know, fame and he has just like fixation and he really wants to get that 13th victim because it'll look good on a headline.
The Supreme Gentleman Carl.
The Supreme Gentleman Carl.
I want to read this little bit. Okay. First I'm too wet, then I'm too dry, he thought, for he saw no difference between waking and sleeping, which I thought was a great line. Maybe it's because I've only 6 days left. How do I know? Might as well get it over with. The weight is getting on my nerves. And all the fuss they were making because he was only 21, as if age had anything to do with it. You're much better off hanging while you're young. If I were old, I'd feel sorry for myself, Schnabel told himself. Later on, memories weigh you down. They fasten on you like leeches. Leeches. He liked the word. A young man hangs easy. It won't hurt. Dark shit.
Mm-hmm.
But also like weirdly profound too. Like he has this knowledge that he's going to gain saddening memories, so it's easier for him to die now when he's like a young, strapping young mass murdering lad
Who can't think about what he's done either.
Yeah,
I think mildly that's implied. Like,
yeah, I think that's right.
Won't have time to sit with it. Because the other thing is, what does it say? It's right at the beginning. It says, and they gave interviews to the press. He couldn't care less. Everybody, he told himself, must die. There's no mercy. He'd never had any either. He'd killed 12, all women. They had screamed like stuck pigs. Not one enjoyed it, but dying is dying. That's life.
He needed a visit from Redlaw's ghost to forget all of his traumatizing memories.
That would be a sweet Dickens Christmas story, like
big crossover.
A mass murderer is visited by ghosts. That'd be a much tougher sell than Scrooge.
The most ambitious crossover event in history is Redlaw's ghost visiting the Supreme Gentleman Carl.
Yeah. Okay. So this one should be renamed Redlaw's Judgment.
Yeah.
I love
that.
I think it should be renamed Redlaw
Order.
Infinity War.
What about Red Law and Order Infinity War? Red Law and Order SVU Infinity War.
Yes.
Red Law and Order. Okay, that's better.
Well, I wasn't. It's actually funny that you brought up Dickens because, like, even in all of this stuff across the board, I feel like there is a bit of I think it's in the Chimes. The one guy who is nice, who is talking to Toby's daughter in the Chimes, and he's like
the magistrate guy or whatever,
essentially invalidating any life choice by a less bleak version of the logic that we're really getting our faces rubbed in these stories, but like the the same kind of notions, which is like, why do this stuff, why marry, why have children, like
they're just gonna turn out poor and like street weasels like you,
right, and miserable, and like, why should you commit yourself to even another person? Like, might as well enjoy your drink and fucking enjoy your time while you're alive and not get married or think about any kind of future whatsoever, etc. Like it does feel similar to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good connection.
Yeah, I think if Lind was born 50 years earlier, 100 years earlier, he would have been the Czech Charles Dickens.
Checkles Dickens.
Checkles Dickens.
I thought he was Viennese, but that's okay.
He's Austrian.
Oh shit, sorry. I suck. Don't listen. Don't listen.
The other thing that jumped out to me about this story from a thematic point of view is, again, keeping with some of the other themes that we've touched on with the rest of these stories, is this sense of the father that I forget who said it earlier, that I brought this thing into the world. It's my responsibility to take it out of the world. I kind of think that's Lind talking about humanity to itself. Like, humanity has brought in, the Holocaust, the Hitler, Nazism into the world, and like, what is our responsibility for trying to remove it from the world, and what extremes should we be expected to go to do that?
But and I agree with that assessment, but it's still so weirdly presented.
Yeah.
You know, because the father's, yeah, I don't know if it's like you're meant to like contend with the entire thing metaphorically like that, like, because then what would the state be in that situation? You know what I mean? Like in
My
that
interpretation
reading of
is
it.
objectively correct, and
Fuck.
so sorry about it.
Damn. I guess next story.
Well, no, I don't know. I'm not saying that every character in the story has a metaphorical role, but just that act of the father killing the son for that sort of reasoning.
Exactly. Yeah.
But still, even after that, like it shows the world in a bleak point of view also, because like the state is just glad they didn't have to pay like the $1,200 or whatever
Right.
to actually execute the prisoner. They're actually happy about it.
Which is there's that sort of hideous bureaucracy again.
Yeah.
I was just watching THX 1138 or whatever that OG George Lucas movie is, which is really great. But that was one of the most hilarious aspects of that movie is so they're trying to get Robert Duvall, the titular character, and they have these like automated police that like basically he like a lot of the like slave people just their employment is building police. And that's how they assess like what they're basically their threshold is there's a money counter the entire time they're trying to get him back into his like cell, and as soon as it like goes over like some amount of like random credit chips, they're like, forget it, and they just stop. They just stop chasing him. But the entire time they're like, I mean, it's only cost us 14,000 and our budget's 40. So good job to the police force right now. And
there's just no moral thought process at all. It's all bureaucracy, all money.
And all these short stories, like, they just have that like final, just extra sad jab.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which tends to be banal.
It's a bleak vibe. I wanted to read this. What? No, I want to read one more line that I thought was really funny.
Go for it.
It's really quick. It just says, Schnabel? How do we just Schnabel? Schnabel was a man of action. Schnabel was a man of action. When he had an idea, he acted on it. He wasn't one to put off things. Never had been. And that made me laugh because I was like, to be a mass murderer, to be a successful mass murderer, you can't be a procrastinator.
No, you got to be a go-getter.
Yeah, you got to really be a go-getter. You got to get the work done.
Yeah, those people aren't going to murder themselves, Paul.
No, I mean, if I really want to kill someone on the first day of every month, I have to do it. I got to get this done. It's like putting out a podcast.
Did you guys ever watch The Fall?
No.
Yeah, I did. Jamie Dornan.
Yeah, Jamie Dornan is this character.
He is this character.
He's just reading Nietzsche, and now he's like, I have to kill women.
Yeah. Yep.
With my hands.
That show is surprisingly bleak. I thought there was going to be some sort of twist or something. It's just like, nope. Jamie Dornan is the mass murderer. So we have to get him. We have to get the guy.
All right.
Next story.
The Window.
The Window. What's going on in The Window?
You guys are gonna have to remind me because I'm blanking. I forgot.
somebody meets God, maybe.
Oh yeah, this one's awesome.
Yeah, it's sort of like
I did like
a little
this.
bit vague, but it starts out as a sort of a guy who basically can't get turned on by his wife anymore, and he's sort of.
What is this? It says this is literally the first sentence, which made me laugh. When her behind left him cold, he knew it was all up with love.
I love it's her behind. It's her, yeah.
And he just keeps saying it like that too. He's like, I don't know what to do, man. Her behind. It's not.
It's cold to me.
It's not getting the juices flowing anymore.
And so he meets this strange figure who he sees looking into his room from outside, or into his home through a window. And he sort of strikes up a conversation with him, and they wind up going to a bar together and having it sort of, like as Matt said, it's sort of implied that this character Leander is some sort of deity, maybe God himself. He refers to himself at one point. He says, I am he is how he describes himself.
Right.
With the
Well, in the
capital H.
in the first few pages, you only know that he has like denounced breasts, as he calls them. Like he just doesn't care about women anymore, and he just says he's a man of God. And Brazel, the main guy who can't get turned on by his wife's behind, he is like an outspoken, like they're having a conversation. He's basically saying that he's an atheist and so on. And but there's a weird point in the story where I forget how he gets proved that or how he starts to totally believe that he is God, the guy, but it's a total 180. He goes from like, I don't really think I believe in God, to suddenly he's like, oh my God, you're God, I love you now, which was a very quick turn of events. This whole story felt like it felt like a dream that Lind just kind of like wrote down on paper after.
Yeah, it's very, very surreal.
Very surreal, more so than the other stories.
What does Brazil offer Leander ultimately as this kind of like, because this being the kind of collection that it is, and Lind being the kind of guy that he is, I was like, this is probably yet another thing where it's like probably the devil.
So yeah, so my interpretation, like basically like Leander sort of like shows Brazil this woman, and he kind of like reawakens his sexual passion, I guess, and that's like the gift that he gives him. And my interpretation, it's not clear, but so he takes out a knife at the end, and my interpretation was that he was gonna cut off Brazil's penis,
right, or something like that
too.
with a penknife of some kind.
Yeah, with the penknife. But then it at the last moment it turns into an Abraham and Isaac situation, and he says, "All right, you can put it away. Your willingness to take your penis out to let me cut it off was enough. I'm not actually going to do it, but the next time we interact, if you fuck around, then I'm getting it."
Right. Your willingness is enough for the moment.
Yeah.
It's Abraham.
Yeah.
It's a surrealist Abraham.
But I think
story.
it's interesting because and this maybe is another sort of like Lind tipping his hand a little bit in terms of his views on religion, similarly to the SS officer / priest. At the end, God sort of comes off as this mob boss who's like always watching you. Like it's this sort of same thing, like I'm always watching you, don't fuck around or I will come cut your penis off.
Right. It's like, I just need to know you. He's just Tony Sopranoing it like out of the room. He's like, nah, it's enough, but just next time you're not gonna be so lucky.
And I just thought that the last that where that sort of is driven home at the end is really well, it's evocative, and I really liked it. So they're sitting at the bar, and he says take it out with it, and Brazil says, "All right," said Brazil, "I'm ready, take it, I've been a fool." Leander shut the penknife and put it away. "Your willingness, my friend, is enough for me. That's all I need, but next time it will cost you more than a little something. Don't get mixed up with me. Don't go to the window to see if I'm there, because I'm always there. That's the truth. I never sleep, never. Now go home to your wife, and whether it makes you sick or not, don't tell anybody. It's me at the window, nobody else. Remember that." Brazil thanked his friend, deeply moved by his generosity. "But if you need me again, my friend, just come to the mill. They always know where I am." Brazil took a run and, winged with new passion, flew over the night roofs of the city the shortest way home. He has been a new man ever since.
He's born again.
He's born again. But I just thought that like, I'm always there. I'm always at the window. Don't even bother looking because it's me. That was very creepy. Very like, I thought that, like, and just the scene of them in this seedy bar late at night. I thought it was awesome.
This bar
that's
really
like
good. This kind of weird utopian oasis.
Mm-hmm.
just these weird characters coming in. Like, what does he say? Something like he's like the Chinamen. They're coming in.
Yes.
They're bringing me a nice little something. Like, just these weird guys coming in and giving this this dude offerings.
Well,
at this
they
bar
were
that
like,
doesn't exist.
but they were kind of like they kind of came off as being sort of like his goons too, or maybe, but like worshiping goons. There was a big mob boss Tony Soprano vibe there, totally.
Well, just I'm always watching, like, listen.
Yeah, I'm gonna know if you do anything.
I've proven my existence to you to the extent I'm willing. Now, if you ever question again, I'm actually gonna be pissed. Don't try and overtly question my existence. Go to the mill, which I'm assuming is just like a place of worship or something like that.
Yeah, that was the name of the bar, but it also functions as
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Like there's a designated spot for that kind of thinking. Otherwise, grin and bear it. But the weird thing is that it works on him. He's happy.
Yeah, it does. But it is a very, very strange. I mean, like another paragraph that I thought was both hilarious and sort of illustrative of Lind's view of religion and the absurdity of it all. Crying is no good, said Leander. Love is up here. He pointed to his forehead. You've got to have God. Without God, it's no good. I've already told you I used to believe in breasts. A man needs breasts, I thought. If he hasn't any of his own, he needs a woman's. Nothing came of it. What are breasts compared with God? You've got to hold on to breasts and then you fall asleep. But God, my friend, holds you and doesn't let you sleep. That's something. God can do everything. He made a man of me. God has everything. Breasts have nothing. God is love. Breasts are mostly milk glands. Same with her behind. It's only flesh. It leads to nothing.
I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna shoot.
I was like,
really
am
funny.
I reading the Yakov Lind collection or like some incel forums?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that this story invented the never nude from Arrested Development too. Remember this part?
The person with no nipples or genitals or butt.
No. Okay, I'll read this little section. He says, "Yes," said the other. He's talking about Leander. "I'm always fast. I never undress." "And the pajamas?" asked Brazil. "I wear them over my suit," the other admitted. "My wife insists."
Right.
"Even if you don't sleep," she says, "a man's got to wear pajamas. Why argue? Why not do her a favor? Now we fight about different things. Marriage is a compromise, hence the pajamas. Everyone has to pay. I don't have to work. My wife came into a bit of money. That's why I said yes, and I had to gain time. Now I've got plenty. I had to find God. Now I can't sleep at night because I've found him. He leaves me no peace. All night I think of God." Very fucking weird. But I love the idea that he just never takes his pajamas off because his wife doesn't want him to.
I feel like this would make such a good little short movie as well.
Yeah, that would be a really cool short film.
A lot of these would. I really think that the one on the train would be a great like Twilight Zone / Hostel little movie.
Yep. Next story.
Next.
Hurrah for freedom.
Hurrah for freedom.
This would make a good short film too.
Yes.
Just because visually it would be hilarious.
What's going on here?
Once again, not totally sure.
Yeah.
I forget why, but like a guy ends up needing to stay over. Do you remember why he needed to stay?
He's just
it's two dudes named Leonard.
Yeah.
One of them,
which is funny.
Yeah. One of them.
A funny thing.
Is that why they start talking to each other or something? But like, yeah. So Leonard Balthazar is the other one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they immediately make a lot of noise about that he's very fat.
Yeah, it's huge.
Hugely fat.
Well, the first paragraph is super funny. I can read it. I'll just read it. "Don't get your hopes up and don't expect too much." The man who said these words was named Leonard Balthazar and weighed close to 22 stone. Everything about him was pale and fat, even his mustache. Without the mustache, he might have been taken for a fat old woman.
Yeah, but so why is it made clear why he he
It's
even
not
needs to-
really. They meet by chance and they're going back to the Fat Leonard's house.
Yeah.
So this one should have been called Fat Leonard.
Starring Eddie Murphy.
No, you're right. It should just be called The Clumps. Yeah, this guy just accepts an invitation, seemingly, you know, out of the kindness of Leonard Balthazar's heart, to just come, you know, have some dinner and weather the night at his place.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts off a very strange experience for other Leonard, who finds out the peculiarities of the Balthazar household. They're big fat nudists.
Yep.
They keep their house incredibly hot, so they're sweating all the time.
Yep.
They have a dead horse hanging from the ceiling of the main dining room, and they incestuously impregnate each other and then eat the resulting offspring.
Yep. Bada bing, bada boom.
And not Balthazar, original Leonard, skinny Leonard, keeps his composure, doesn't like what he sees, but is trying not to be too judgmental. And then he bids everyone a fond good night.
He says bye-bye. Yeah, that's it. That's the story.
That's the story.
And I think, you know, the horse the rotting horse that they have above, that hanging from the ceiling, is they have this religious sort of view that, like, once the horse fully rots down to the bones, that will signal that like Lithuania will become free again, which is where they're from.
Right, like the Russians
will retreat from Lithuania.
Yeah, and that horse, that in particular, that gesture of just like hanging the horse, I was like, this has to be symbolic of some idea, and I couldn't think of what it could be.
They're refugees from Russian invasion of Lithuania, and yeah, the horses, when it's gone, that'll be the freedom of Lithuania again.
This felt very much like just folk wisdom and being chill with other people's cultural beliefs and behaviors. It painted it as like, this is when you're allowed to be like, this is bad, or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like an episode of Anthony Bourdain that went really bad. and he had to get out of there.
I also think part of the message here is like, again, you know, they're sort of, part of the reason they're proud of their lifestyle or happy with their lifestyle is because it means that they get to live free from Russian intervention. They're like, this is how we keep Russia away.
Right.
And you know, it's like this hideous lifestyle that they live. It's just awful, but to them it's worth it because we don't have to be under Russian rule.
And like the visitor Leonard, I don't know, he's almost anthropological in his, or anthropologist style in his approach to this, because like they make a lot of you know, I don't know, they mention that he's a doctor a bunch.
And medical student,
that he fucking loves science, and that he I don't know, I think it's supposed to be played for humor, that he's really trying not to judge, like he's like drinking their like hog's blood liquor and like taking a tiny little bite of a human baby, just to like be polite. And he's like, he doesn't even give a final judgment. He clearly doesn't like it, but like I think it's supposed to be an indictment that he just mildly retreats from what is a charnel house of just absolute horror.
Well, and I also think it's this sort of like commentary on how terrible the world was at that time for people, that this, compared to their perception of that, was preferable. You know, so there's this line near the end where Leonard says, True, they were naked, they ate their children, and the whole house stank. But
True.
True, they were naked, they ate their children, and the whole house stank. But in the paradise of workers and peasants, as the newspaper said, the people were still worse off. And besides, they're not allowed to travel. So it's just this comical comparison of like Soviet conditions versus these like the worst people you can imagine, and sort of like, who knows?
Yeah.
Come say come sa, a little column
There's
A,
no way to
little column B.
judge.
Yeah. It's impossible.
Which is hilarious.
I think there was a little like I read this a little bit like Lind was trying to say like the grass isn't always greener. It's like the grass
Right.
is always bad. It's like the grass is always shit brown.
Was there some mention of the fact that they're also they just made all of it up too? I forget if there was some nod to the fact that like the guy was like, fuck, I'm trying to see if there is, but like
That who made it up?
that the Balthazars, they're not even doing anything Lithuanian. Like they just made up rituals and random behaviors. Because I think it's like the hurrah for freedom is too like they now have the freedom, quote unquote, to do this shit, do this shit that is so disgusting that they would have been chased out of, non-Russian occupied Lithuania for doing.
Right.
But now there's like this grievance that they have that gives them like a purpose for eating their children.
It's basically, they basically are able to generate an excuse for being the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This should be called The Balthazars Are the Worst.
Or hurrah for children's blood.
Yes.
Well, I think there's a little bit of a callback to like Soviet states actually having to eat each other, right? Didn't that actually happen? Like villages that were so starved under communist rule that they literally did like cannibalize each other. Pretty sure I'm not.
Sounds like CIA propaganda to me.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I was really wrong about Mozart, so I'm probably wrong about that too.
Well, you called him Bach before too. It was a good bit. I liked it.
Beethoven.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just like cannibalism, which was mentioned earlier in the book.
Yep.
Is one of those taboos, the crossing of which I think is like a point of no return. Something like that,
Especially when you eat your own children.
Yes, allowing for these kind of things to happen is in fact categorically wrong.
Right.
And the fact that this person is sitting here trying to put a good face on it because he's an objectivist medical student.
Yes.
Is itself kind of like no. Like,
I was getting a little bit of Midsummer vibes, like a young med student coming to like see how the foreign people live, or like how the poor people live. And I was also getting a little bit of Hereditary with all the naked fat people standing around in the darkness. I kind of liked how like it was really strange that like the room or the building they were in, the house was like it was too warm, so they hadn't put on slippers because the floor was too hot. And they keep saying like, "Oh, don't leave. It's warm here." And it almost made me think like, are they just nudists because their house is so hot?
But they do it on purpose too.
They make the house hot on purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah. So the worst part, the creepiest and funniest part is when the realization that they're cannibalizing their children occurs, and then they invite some of the kids down to be like, "Children, come meet the man."
Right.
And the dude's like just eaten a tiny bit of one of their siblings. And he's just looking at these kids, and this is where it just goes straight up National Geographic, where It's just as 7 naked creatures stood around him in his clothes. It was stiflingly hot. They all had bloated white bodies, and all the women were without pubic hair, another Lithuanian custom. Leonard felt as if he were dreaming. He was rather sorry for them. A well-dressed hunter on safari can't help feeling sorry for the savages he meets. He would have liked to give them a handful of glass beads or a mirror. They are poor and proud, Leonard said to himself. Actually, what did he himself know of the communist yoke? All hearsay. Here, for the first time, he was seeing the real victims. They moved him almost to tears, but a medical man has to control himself.
Yes.
Like, that just felt, again, like a kind of summation of what the fuck was going on. You know, this guy unable to have an authentic moral reaction because what did he know? He only had hearsay about what it was like to live under Russia. These people were like victimized, you know, all this kind of stuff. Like the way it muddies the waters and other atrocities can happen. It feels like an answer to the other side of it. The more complicated question of like, I don't know, like even the people to whom violence is being perpetrated being capable of the same thing, which is strange, but it I don't know.
Next story.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I don't have much more to say about that one. I think that's yeah.
Yeah, me neither. It's just with all these stories, it's just it feels a bit like I'm kind of groping for takeaways and stuff, which might be good. Might be a good might be the whole point, but
so this is the last one. I mean, I
Resurrection.
feel like we've hit on some pretty like themes that have run through most of them that have come back over. I don't feel like you're groping.
nice. Thanks, man.
All right, so the last story in the collection is called Resurrection.
Yes.
Yes,
What's-
it is.
What's popping? What's popping with this one?
I
I
had to take a big
you
old swig
guys-
of wine.
I think this was my least favorite one.
So it's basically about these two guys who sort of are both hiding out from Nazis, and they sort of develop a friendship. I think one's a Jew, you know, a ethnic Jew, but a Christian, and the
Right.
other one is a religious Jew.
Like a Zionist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one didn't seem to like hit on the themes of the rest of the stories to me.
Hmm.
One the younger guy, I think it's the younger guy, he basically reveals he has tuberculosis and he has like 6 months to live.
Mhm.
And the other guy basically like helps him out and lives with him, and they're like in this house together and they're there for a long time. And I forget exactly what happens, but they end up getting out of the house and he like gets fresh air and suddenly starts to feel better. And then they jump ahead in time and basically he's totally cured and he's fine. His health is totally okay. And then their friendship just kind of like dwindles. They see each other like 3 more times and then it just kind of ends. And I really did not know what Lind was going for in this one. It was very different than the rest of them. It wasn't very bleak. It was actually kind of like just like a nice story about two friends. I don't know.
I'll take
I didn't.
Oh, I'll take the only thought I had about this was just like it it reminded me of like I don't know. I think there's like an old Twilight Zone where these people were like trapped in this thing and they thought that the apocalypse had occurred outside.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so they were like hermetically sealed in this environment where, you know, it was just like kind of their personalities and they were like fighting more and more. And you know, it just their world became shrunk down to these two perspectives. And I don't know. I think you have the ethnically Jewish Christian whose rationale for becoming Christian is so that his anti-Semitism was justified. Just some weird convoluted rationale for being Christian that was like partially derived from like like Talmudic mental convolutions. And then you have like the hyper idealistic Zionist trapped in a kind of Anne Frank scenario.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, arguing and then finally, and then maybe like kind of seeing how they were talking past each other and what was the takeaway. It might be one of the more hopeful stories in the collection.
Yeah, I think it definitely is, because they kind of ultimately come to some sort of, not agreement, but a kind of, weird friendship, and yeah, they see each other later on in life, and it sort of ends with this kind of like big tent sentiment, where just the last couple paragraphs, Goldschmied looked at Weintraub for a moment and turned and left him. As he left, he said, "You're right, Weintraub. We've got to keep our health. With all this fear, we might as well be dead. Keep healthy, have a good trip, and make sure you get there all right. We shall meet again." A week after this conversation, the two did indeed meet. Weintraub was climbing the steep stairs to his holy Jerusalem, and Goldschmied to his Jesus on the cross. For to tell the truth, the city of Jerusalem is not so very big. Sort of like the differences aren't as blown up as we sort of make them to be, and
Right.
there's all of this sort of division, in the big picture, but that sort of drove Nazi ideology was this blown out of proportion religious, these distinctions are not as serious as we make them out to be.
Right. And in the stifling environment of this horrific regime where people are being killed for these reasons, those things just have the space to kill you and create them into monstrously large issues that are worth killing for and dying for. And then so like I don't know, like the consumption thing, or like the tuberculosis thing, and then them finally getting out and him being actually fine. Just seems like just a very literal representation of that. Like they're only dying in this kind of situation.
And it's because of that tight space and that tight environment that the sort of rot comes through, and once it's opened up a little bit, it just dissipates.
So
Maybe
Lind
that's
is,
he's
he's being cheerful here.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, what do you guys think of him ending the book, the collection with this story?
It's a nice gesture, because the rest of it is so relentlessly sort of everything is terrible and everybody's terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
but
but
I think you're right. It is a sort of jarring kind of like it almost feels like a contrived happy ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally. There's no Looney Tunes in this one. There's very stripped down, and it's a big shift in tone from the rest of the stories.
It's just
But
that
I don't.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say I don't mind the happy endings. It's just it was a very strange way to shift to an ending like this in the collection for me.
I don't mind a happy ending, and in fact, I had somewhat negative response to this book, or not like an overwhelmingly negative response, but just like my criticisms would be from the point of view of like this feels it's unremittingly bleak in a way that feels reductive and kind of redundant and a little simplified, even though there are great moments where Lind is like hitting upon how fucking complicated evil is as it convolutes into itself and justifies itself with like the responses to evil, creating evil, and that kind of thing. Like that's all super interesting and is in here, but mostly it's unremittingly bleak. And this feels like Gabe was saying, like a kind of like, hey, it's not all that big a deal.
Right.
Yeah.
which does feel a little simple as a statement, especially in relation to the other stuff, the dark stuff about humanity that he was describing. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely, yeah, I did not like it as much as I remembered liking it. And I think partially, like you said, Matt, for that reason, just the sort of like it felt, you know, the best literature about the Holocaust and about that era is manages to be both like stark and direct and brutal while also morally complicated and interesting. And I thought the moral sort of worldview that Lind was evincing here, I thought he posed some interesting questions, which is good. But I think reductive is a really good word. I think that's yeah.
I think he's just too sad. I think he's too. I think some. You know. I mean, I don't. It's not like I don't understand maybe this kind of scarring on you and takeaway.
Sure.
But I think he's fucking. He's just. He doesn't have. He's so bleak about human beings and their potential. So when he does a gesture like this, you're right. It feels pained almost in a way.
And
Like
there are definitely funny parts in the book, but even those were sort of more like, yeah, like more Looney Tunes funny than like,
yeah.
It was like nihilistic Three Stooges.
Keystone SS officers.
yes,
Yeah.
It was a little black-pilled maybe, which obviously you can't fault someone that for being black-pilled about the Holocaust. But
yeah. Game quote of the day.
Yeah. Do we want to like rank the stories, or should we do Harry Potter? There's a lot of characters.
I think Harry Potter's a little complicated for this one.
Let's instead of the Harry Potter, everyone's favorite segment, which will now be 2 weeks without. It'll be back. The fan favorite segment will return. Let's let's rank these bad boys.
All right, let me just pull up the little list here. Table of contents, baby. Okay. You want me to go first?
I'll go.
Whoever.
Yeah.
Paul.
I will go first.
Is this worst to best or best to worst?
Oh, yeah.
This will be worst to best.
Okay.
I don't know if I have a table of contents.
Damn, I'm going to go best to worst. That seems more natural.
All right. Mine, worst for me was Resurrection. Then I would have to say the Pios brother. Pios.
Pius.
This is really hard.
The penis brother.
The penis brother. It actually gets a lot harder now, but I would actually say Soul of Wood, third worst.
Wow.
Fuck.
I really didn't like that one. I was kind of falling asleep. Then I would say Hurrah for Freedom, the Naked People, Naked Cannibals. Then The Window. My top three are The Window, Judgment number 2, and I actually am flipping my initial response. I think Journey Through the Night is number 1. That one will stick with me.
Nice.
That one's a 5-bagger.
5-bagger, popcorn classic.
Damn.
That one alone, that one boosts up my overall rating of the whole book for sure. That's a must read, I would say.
Yeah. All right, I'll go. I'm also gonna go worst to best to keep the tension built.
Oh shit.
For me, the one the Pius brother was my least favorite, I think. Then Hurrah for Freedom, then Resurrection, then The Judgment, and then top 3 would be The Window, Soul of Wood, and Journey Through the Night. The train one as well is my favorite.
Sick. All right. Should I just do what you guys did?
Yeah. Worst to best.
Yeah.
Worst to best? All right. So the worst to me is probably Resurrection, the Pius brother. Then I would say The Judgment. No. Yes. Then Hurrah for Freedom. And then my top 3 are The Window, Journey Through the Night, Soul of Wood.
Nice. So our top 3 is just all the same pretty much, except for some couple variations.
Well, no,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you had Soul of Wood outside your top 3. But
Soul of Wood, I had, yeah, I didn't like that one.
But we all
I didn't like
agree
that.
the train and the window are in there.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
I think
They're the shortest. They were, the
Yeah.
first, most short and second shortest, basically.
I think that's right. And I just feel like they just were so punchy and distilled and the window, I think I like them for different reasons personally. I like the train one because it's just this is my thematic concern. I'm putting it in your face, but I'm
Right.
doing it in a really like interesting and evocative and eerie way. The window I just liked because I thought it was similarly evocative in the writing, but it also had such a different feel. It was just dreamy, and I think the window I liked more for the writing than for the sort of content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of just gonna, can I say ditto on that, basically?
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had the judgment up there so high because I thought it was the funniest, and I needed some humor in this bleak book. And it was also, I like that kind of psychology. I like true crime, and I like psychopathic people and reading about them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I had that one up so high. But
The judgment, of course, is my favorite genre, which is false crime.
false murderer.
False murderer?
False crime, like the false crime, fiction crime,
True crime.
opposite of true crime.
Fuck. Fuck. So disappointed in myself for not.
Should we throw some numbers on this bad boy?
Come on, Matt. You got to fire on all cylinders on these things.
Yeah, dude. False
You
detective.
can't be just like, no. Okay, well now I get it.
False lies.
Yeah. I've always been here. What did you want to do?
Numbers game.
Rate the book, I guess. I fully confess that potentially my view or my feeling about it was colored because I remembered liking it a lot and it didn't live up to my sort of remembered vibes, so that I may be being harsher than I otherwise would. But it's it's like a 3.1 for me. I think it's good.
Yeah, that's not. I like we were saying before. I don't know if that's necessarily that's not abysmal.
No,
No.
that's good. That's good.
I was gonna say 3.2.
Yeah.
3.25.
I was gonna give it a 3.34.
Wow.
So okay,
I got the highest score out of here.
Matt, what'd you say? 3.25.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
That's a nice in darts. That would be a nice little grouping.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We were all on the same page there.
Yeah.
I think, Lind, check it out.
I'll be reading something else of his probably.
I don't know how much else is in translation, honestly.
Not a ton.
Yeah, not much. This is his major collection.
The Journey Through the Night though is like I would say a must read 5 back.
I definitely think Journey Through the Night is worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
Soul of Wood, I really like Soul of Wood also, and The Window, definitely. Those three were definitely worth it all for me.
Yeah, if you can find a version of this somewhere, get it. And also, I contend that my God damn it.
Can't see it all.
See the tree man?
Well,
Mine is
the listeners can't.
The Hill and Wang edition is the coolest looking version of the book you can buy.
Oh well, good
Yeah.
for you. I actually like my cover too. The two naked people, which I just realized were probably the naked people.
That's got to be the Balthazars.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing we didn't talk about that I should want to throw out there is that this book wasn't published until the 60s. So this wasn't like a, immediately after the Holocaust. So it was also sort of entering like a different era of style and art and stuff when this was written and coming out than like some of the stuff that was closer temporally to the Holocaust actually happening. So think of that what you will, but I thought that was worth noting.
I think you're basically saying that this is like Weezer, and it's not. It was trying to be the Beatles. Like
I love the Beatles.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like I actually didn't know that. I thought it was written in like the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
That was my guess.
Yeah. Probably should have said that earlier, but here we are.
They
Here we
listen,
are.
but we didn't. And
we also didn't talk about the author very much at all. But
we did. He was,
he lived under. He was Jewish, and he lived under a false identity, and that's how he, I believe, survived most of that period.
Yep.
Basically, he was like Don Draper.
He had a sweet mustache too.
Get that coffee.
Yeah, he looks like that guy.
He looks like Food Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks just like Food Man.
Yeah.
Well, he looks better than the.
Well, yeah, he's got a different, but he looks better a lot like Food Man.
Yeah.
He looks better than the Food Man.
Yeah. He looks better than Food Man.
I love when we in real time just polish it, just refine it so well.
Get there.
Writer's room.
We always get there.
Writer's room. Hattori Hanzo
Writer's
blade.
room.
You can just cut through anything at the end of it. Just fold the steel. Fold that steel.
Well,
all right.
Thanks for listening to Spine Crackers this week, where we read Jakov Lind's collection Soul of Wood and Other Stories.
Just check out Yakov Smirnov's comedy while you're at it, just as a double feature.
And check out our Twitter and Instagram pages.
Yeah, I'm Paul.
I'm Gabe.
Goodbye, everybody.
And I'm Matt. And it's been a pleasure.
Your spine has just been fucking cracked.
And your spine has been cracked in a good way.